Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Beagle and the Broom, and I'm going to be sipping on my coffee. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, deep yellow, burnt sienna, which I'll call rust, burnt umber, which I'll call brown, cobalt blue, and Mars black. And of course you can switch up those colors as well if you'd like to. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'll be using for some drawing, and then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, I have a number 10 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 1 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you through your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same kind of paints and brushes and chalk and all that good stuff. So that's down there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting, so you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to be doing for the first step is we're doing our background. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush, and I'm going to be using black, white, and blue. And what we're in essence going to be doing is we're going to put the wall behind our cute dog, and we're also going to be putting the base coat of our floor. So I'm going to be doing the wall with a medium to dark gray. Then we'll do like a little bit of a separation at the bottom of the wall where it's going to meet the ground, and it'll be really almost black, or like a little gradient of black right at that meeting point, and then we'll make our floor go a little bit lighter with a little bit of blue. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to pre-mix myself a medium to dark gray with black and white. So I've magically done it off camera, but I'll show you how I got there. So this is the color gray that I'm going for. So it's pretty dark. Just know that it will get a little bit darker as it dries as well, so just kind of plan for that. And what I've done is I've mixed about equal parts of white and black, and then I just spun them together. So you might want yours a little bit lighter or a little bit darker, or maybe you go for a different color wall than me, but this is about where I'm headed with mine. And then once you've got your perfect gray, what you're going to do is I'm going to make myself a couple of markers on my canvas to stop me from going too far down my canvas. So I'm going to bring my wall down about 2/3 of the way down my canvas. So to know where that is, if you eyeball about halfway between top and bottom, and then you eyeball about halfway between that marker and the bottom of your canvas, somewhere in here, it's about halfway between those two. So somewhere in through here. If you want inches, it's maybe about 5 1/4 to 5 1/2 inches. And then you can use your brush as a measuring tool to see where you made that marker, and come over on the other side and make it at about the same height. That'll just give you a visual stopping point. I'm going to be applying my paint in a left to right brush stroke, and you can be very, generous with the amount of paint that you want to put on here. I am just going for a nice complete full coat, so I'm going to be using quite a bit of paint. I know that I have a lot of white in my mixture, so that's going to provide me with good opacity, which means I'll probably only need to do 1 coat to get a nice solid representation of that color. But if you go through your process and you're finding it to be a little bit streaky, or you've got some light spots and dark spots, what you can do is just wait for it to dry and do a second coat on it. So the option to do that is certainly open to you. And I'm just going to bring it all the way down to my markers that I have on the left and the right. You can see I'm just going back and forth, left to right, give myself a nice good coverage, just about at my line as we speak here. And I'm not concerned about this being a perfectly executed line, because you're going to see in a minute that I'm going to get it to blend in with my black. But let me just kind of get this to be a nice even coat. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm not going to wash it, just going to give it a good kind of squeeze in my paper towel. I'm going to pick up just black paint, and I'm going to do a very short gradient in this area right here. So I've got black on my brush. I'm just going to bring the black all the way across this line, and then I'm going to bring it up a little bit and blend it in with that gray a little bit. So I'm really just doing long continual strokes left to right. I don't need it to go too high. I just really wanted to have kind of a soft edge as it's meeting that gray. So just going back and forth over the two colors as they meet will help you to do that. And then I'm just gonna, as I come down in through here, what I'm gonna do is, as I do my floor, I'm going to, I think I'm going to pick up just a little bit more black, make this just a little bit wider. There we go. I'm going to be picking up the gray plus blue as I go into the floor. So if you have a ton of black on your brush, you can certainly just wipe it off on your paper towel. Not really necessary. But what I'm going to do, I picked up gray and blue, about equal parts of both. And this is going to allow me to have a different shade of gray on that floor. And I'm going to get it to blend in a little bit with that black. So again, just kind of bumping into that black as it's drying is going to give you a nice soft transition from that dark corner of the wall into the floor, which is going to be of a lighter, more alive kind of color. And again, I'm just picking up gray and blue, and it doesn't matter what quantity of the gray and or the blue that you have. It'll give you a variety of those shades if you just pick them up together. Maybe one time you have a little bit more blue, maybe one time you have a little bit more gray, whatever happens is totally fine. And then we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your background done, oh look at that, I must have got my sleeve in here or something. Once you've got your background done, you can wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna put some misty fog, mystical atmosphere stuff on the bottom of our canvas. So I guess we can call it like fog. We'll simplify what it's called. So I'm using my large brush. I do want to forewarn you that before you do this step that you just make sure your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So I want this to look like there's some sort of, you know, magical misty fog on the floor, and it's just kind of rising up. So I'm going to be using my gray plus white and blue. And I'm going to be using this brush, and I'm going to be applying it in this scrubbing type of technique, or scumbling type of technique. So you don't need a lot of paint on your brush to do this, provided you have a nice firm brush like I do. If your paint is on the thicker side, you can also add a tiny bit of water and or fluid medium, so you can get it to really spread far, so it's got some translucency to it, and you can get it to dissipate up into the air. Think of this like kind of smoky, translucent type of stuff we're putting on. So I'm going to have a lot of it on the floor, and the floor is going to be pretty bright with a good amount of lightness to it. And then as it comes up behind or into the air, it's going to be much less volume and very see-through. I don't want to put too much on here so I don't lose the idea that this is the bottom of the wall. So as I get to this part in through here, I'm going to make sure I don't do too much over that area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of gray, a tiny bit of white, and a tiny bit of blue, all on my brush at the same time. And it's always easier to start with very little paint and add as you go, as opposed to just picking up a real big, huge amount of paint for this kind of step. So I have those three colors on my brush, and I'm really just thinking of this as smoky fogginess throughout my canvas. So I've got a good dryness on my brush right now, so that'll help me to get some coming on up in through here. Reloading my brush because I'm running out, so the same colors, gray, blue, and white. I'm going to have a good amount again on this floor in through here, and I really just want it to look airy and smoky, and I'm gonna have some light spots and some dark spots. I do know that I will have my dog in through here, so that area will be taken up by the cuteness of the dog, so I don't really need to do a whole bunch in through there. But I do want to, you know, have some good atmospheric information over in through this area, so I will definitely put quite a bit coming up in through here. And again, hardly any paint on my brush right now. I'm just bringing this up in through this air, making sure that I have a little bit of blue on my brush, because that's gonna make this look different from the background, the little bit of blue that you have on your brush. And I'm just gonna have a little bit of it kind of coming on up in through here. I definitely want to have a little bit up in the air over here as well, but I'm going to just kind of work my way to that. So I just reloaded my brush a little bit more. And every time you put a little bit on here, I'm starting in the floor, because to me, that's a safety zone for me. And then as I come up, once I run out of paint or start to run out of paint, that's when I work my way up into the wall, because that's, to me, I want to keep that wall looking like it's the wall, as opposed to just this filled with a different color. So I just am adding as I run out of paint, just kind of allowing myself to explore a little bit more of this smokiness as it's coming up. And if you do too much, you can always bring back some of that wall color. I definitely want to have a little bit behind my little witchy character over in through here, so just putting some on in through there, and that's looking pretty good to me. I might fiddle with it a little bit more, but again, I'm not really doing a whole heck of a lot, just adding this smokiness down on the floor, giving it some good atmospheric information. And then we're going to be using our piece of chalk for the next step. So once you've got your floor and your smoke and your mist all nice and finished, you can put this large brush away, take out your piece of chalk, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're drawing an outline of our dog and our broom. I'm going to be using my chalk, and again, I do forewarn you that you want to make sure that your canvas is dry, so just it'll be an easier process for you if you do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you through some basic shapes in order to get a starting point for our little dog, and then I'll give you points of reference and we'll draw an outline. We're not going for any fine-tuned detail, just something nice and basic that'll get us started in the painting process. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to be drawing a circular type shape for the dog's head, and then we'll build everything off of that. So I'm going to be having my dog's head somewhere in this vicinity here. So if this is about halfway in the canvas, I'm maybe like 2 or 3 inches away from that. I'm going to be drawing myself a circle. That's kind of like an oval type of shape. And if you're trying to do a different type of dog, you can certainly do yours in, you know, a different style shape and things of that nature. So that's about the size of my circular kind of shape that I'm going to do. I'm going to put my little ears on here with just a nice little outline. I'm doing a beagle style dog. If you're trying to do a different kind of dog, you can certainly make your ears and all kinds of stuff in a different shape than mine, but I'm just having some fun with some long ears that flop a little bit past my my dog's chin, so something like that. So that's going to be the general start of it. I'm going to put a big floppy hat on top of it, and then I'll put the body in and everything accordingly after that. So my hat is going to be really tall. It's going to be a big floppy witch kind of hat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the right of my head and up maybe about an inch or two and give myself, this will be the corner of the rim of the hat. And then I'm going to say how wide I want it. I'm going to have it about this wide. So it's going to come out maybe about 2 or 3 inches to the left of the head. I'm going to connect these two. This is going to be my front rim. And I'm going to get it to go in front of the dog's head a little bit. So I'm dipping it down just a little bit like that to give it like a nice floppy look to it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself the sides of the rim of the hat, so something like this and like this. And then the fun part of creating the top of the hat, you can really have fun with making it either straight and pointy or floppy and pointy. I'm making mine kind of floppy and pointy. I'm going to have the tip of my hat somewhere up in through here, and then I'm just going to get it to go wider and wider as it comes down and meets the rim of the hat that I've just created. So this can kind of come up in through here and then just kind of giving myself a fun shape to it. I want to see the underside of my hat, so I'm going to bring this down to about the bottom of the head. So start somewhere in through here. I'm going to give myself a nice ripply edge over here and then do the same thing over on this side with just a whole bunch of little ripple marks. Like this is made of some fun fabric that somebody created specifically for this little guy. So that's going to be my hat. Now I need to create the cloak or the body. So I'm going to have just a black kind of piece of cloth draping over the dog. So what I'm going to do, give myself a couple of markers as to where the bottom points of the end of the cloak is going to be. So I've got this, if this is my head, I'm over maybe about 2 inches or so. I am up maybe about 2.5 to 3 inches from the bottom of my canvas. And over on the left-hand side, I'm going to make this one maybe a little bit lower down on my canvas and really close to the edge of my, to the left edge. I need to give the body some kind of shape. So I'm going to start this back side of the cloak, maybe a little bit into the hat, somewhere in through here, and then just give myself a nice ripply kind of motion down in through there. And then on the right hand side, I'm going to start this maybe, I would say maybe about halfway between here and here. And then this is just going to have a nice fun kind of a ripply look as well as it's kind of making its way up our cute little dog, something like that. And then I'm going to connect these two, but I want to have a couple of paws sticking out. So if you kind of imagine where the shoulders of your dog would be and go straight down, you can imagine that to be where the little paws would be sticking out. So I'm going to give myself a couple of little oval-y type shapes. And I say that because when I go to attach these two, I want them to look like it's rippling over the paws. So I need to know where my paws are going to be in order to do that. So I'm going to take this and maybe come in through here. It ripples over, and then I've got myself some of the cloth in through here, ripples over, and then it just kind of snakes and kind of meets this little point in through here. I'm going to put just a little outline on the face. I'm representing a beagle dog, so I'm going to have a white marking on front of the face. So I'm just going to kind of bring myself down like this and then just give myself a couple of little curved lines. So that's all I'm going to do for the detail on the face. I'm going to give myself a simple outline for my broom. So I'm going to have the end of it coming somewhere in through here, and it's just going to kind of be a old like piece of wood that's just going to kind of ripple through on the floor and just kind of be sitting on the floor, and maybe the end of it is where it's going to meet the bristles is going to come over in through here. And I'm getting it to be a little bit ripply, so that way it looks like it's a rickety piece of wood that you know, resembles almost all of the witch brooms that I've seen in my life. And then in through here, this is going to be where I'm going to have my all the straw kind of coming out. So I'm really not going to do much other than give myself a little bit of an outline. I know that I want it to be more narrow, where we're going to have the tie for it, and then just kind of splay out in through here. I'm going to have it coming almost out towards the end of my canvas, something like this. And that is all I'm going to be doing for my outline. We're going to be using our medium brush for the next step, so make any adjustments that you want to. Put your chalk away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the base coat for our dog and its costume. So I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors I'm using are black, white, brown, gray, rust, and yellow. So all my colors except for blue. How I'm going to do this is I'm going to tackle my my face and my paws first, and then I'll paint everything else. So on my paws and my face, I'm going to be doing a grayish type of color for the paws and this white area in the front. And then I'll be using my yellow and my rust for these three, or the face and the two ears. So I'm going to make myself a light tannish gray for the paws and the nose. I'm going to be using my background gray, and I'm going to add some white and some brown to it. So what this is going to do, it's going to give me I'm making a lighter version of this gray with a little bit more brown in it. So this way it ends up being a different type of gray, and it will not compete with the other gray that's on my canvas. So this is going to just give me a different option and a lighter version. I'm using it as a base coat for these parts of the animal that will eventually have white fur on them, so it will give it a dimensional element to it. So I'm just painting this whole paw. I'm going to put a little ruffled edge around the bottom so it's not a firm line, and that'll help us when we go to add some fur on it later, or the illusion of fur. So just kind of tapping my brush along that bottom edge to give myself a little bit of a texture to it. I'm going to go ahead and paint this little nose section with the stripe going down the head. So again, I am depicting a cute little beagle type of a dog, but you could certainly do whatever kind of dog or animal you would like. This is your painting. Maybe you make a caricature or a cartoon that is not an actual living being. So just have fun with it. I'm trying to make these edges soft where they meet the next color, so that way it will be an easier process to make fur. I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and the ears and this little face part in through here, I will be using rust and yellow, and I'm going to use them both on my brush at the same time, so that way I have maybe one area is a little bit more yellow, maybe one area is a little bit more rusty color, and that way I'll have a good variety of these colors within these two sections. And if during your process you get rid of your outline, it's okay, because I'm going to help you to bring that back with dimension in it, with shading and stuff like that. I'm not going to be painting this part up and through here. This is actually going to be part of the hat, so you can erase that line if you want to. I just didn't want to confuse you as I'm painting in these ears and stuff. So bringing my color right to the end of my chalk mark. Bring this one down just a little bit more, and they're going to look a little dull after they dry right now, simply because we are working with them on top of a dark gray, And my paint that I'm using, the colors I've chosen to use are very translucent, so they will take on the color that is behind them. And I'm not concerned about that at this point. This is just my base coat that I'm going for. We will put all of the other little details on later. And then once I've got that in through there, and you can see I'm just kind of bringing it into that gray area a little bit, I'm going to wash and dry my brush. And the rest of the costume is going to be painted just with black paint. So even underneath this chin, this is where you might end up reshaping your outline a little bit if you need to. Bring it right to that chalk mark. The chalk may turn some of it a little bit gray. Don't worry about that. Just roll with it. We're going to be putting gray as a highlight on here anyways later, so if some of yours ends up gray, that is quite all right. And then I'm just gonna ripple my paint all the way down these sides, and I'm gonna do the same thing on the hat. So again, as you're going towards these this chalk mark, if you bump into it, feel free to just let it happen. I'm gonna go right over my little paws, gonna just wiggle my cloth along here. And this is, you know, a really fun step, because if you do find that you want to morph any of the shape of this, feel free to do so. Again, you could put a different color, you could just have some fun with it. If you're doing your dog and your dog has a big tail, you could pop a little tail out the back, or, you know, customize this to be whatever way you want. It's just meant to be a fun painting and to enjoy the process, so you can make it into whatever you'd like. And as you're going along these edges, if you feel like you want your edges to be nice and clean, and your brush isn't providing that clean edge, you can always put a little bit of water on your brush to get those edges to be nice and smooth and have that crisp edge to them. Oftentimes, I will just kind of dip my brush in water as I go through the process, just so I can get those clean edges. This rim to the hat, I know that we put it on there, but if during this process you find that you paint over it, that's okay, because you're going to have the cues of this pointy here, you'll have the cues of this part of the face, and then maybe of this over here. So you can leave a little bit of space between that rim and the underside if you wanted to, but if you paint over it, don't worry about it. I will talk you through getting it back when we go to put those highlights on. So no worries if you painted all the way over your chalk mark on this rim part, because again, I will talk you through when we go through that part. And I'm just bringing my brush right up to my chalk. And if by the time you're done with this step, if you still have some of your chalk showing along the edges, don't even worry about it, because we've got plenty of stuff that we're going to be doing. Oh, so I just made my ear a little bit smaller. It's okay. We have plenty of stuff that we'll be doing to make that chalk go away at the end. So I'm just finishing up here. And then once you've got this whole area painted in, we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So I'm just going to kind of get the rest of my cute little pointy hat on in through here. Make sure that I've got a pretty good coverage, and again, it doesn't have to be a perfect coverage, because we'll be doing all kinds of enhancements and details to it in a future step. So once I've got this done, I will wash and dry this medium brush in preparation for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are painting our broom. So I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors I'm using are brown, black, white, yellow, and rust. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to be tackling like a base coat for my piece of wood, then I'll do all my straw pieces, and then we'll do a couple little details, and we'll magically have a magic broom by the time we're done. So I'm going to take my medium brush, I'm going to load it with black, brown, and white. So not a lot of black, not a lot of brown, and not a lot of white. I don't need much. What I'm going to be doing, I'm only doing this little area in through here, and I want there to be a variety of the tones of the brown and the black and the white. So I'm not going to be doing a whole heck of a lot here, just getting it on. I'm not over blending it, so you can see that there's some light spots and some dark spots. I'm bringing it all the way to the end here. And while that is just kind of sitting and drying for a minute, we'll come back and we'll do some details on it. But while it is drying, I'm going to go ahead and put some straw in through here. So this is, I'm not going to wash my brush, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to alternate colors. Instead of putting them all on my brush at the same time and going for, you know, a multitude that way, I'm going to alternate my colors. So this way I'm going to have individual strands of of a particular color. But I won't wash my brush, so they'll look like they're working with each other. So the straw is in essence cinched in through here. So as I'm doing these strands of straw, I will get them to kind of go diagonally to this piece, and then from here they'll go diagonally kind of out and splay out and stuff. So I'm going to start with some black paint on my brush, just so I can kind of get some nice deep dark pieces within there without having to do a whole heck of a lot of work. And then I'm going to just bring it in through here too. You can paint right over this middle section if you want to. We're going to be putting a piece of rope or something to close that off, but I definitely want to make sure that I've got some nice long and uneven kind of pieces. Maybe it looks like it's almost resting on the ground a little bit. Feel free to have fun with that. I'm not washing my brush. I'm going to pick up some brown paint and get some other varying dark tones within this. And I really like to do a step like this in a carefree manner, so that way it ends up looking pretty darn natural. I am going to eventually have the top lighter than the bottom, so I'm also considering that as I am adding these pieces of straw onto here. When I start to get into the lighter tones, I will concentrate those more on the top. I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel right now, and I'm going to pick up the burnt sienna or rust, and I'm going to start introducing some of that in here. And once I've gone in this type of order that I'm going through right now, I will, as I'm tidying up, I will definitely start to alternate, and I might pick up a little bit more black, I might pick up a little bit more yellow or whatever as I'm closing shop and kind of feeling like I've got everything on here that I want to. So I've got some of that rust. I'm going to go into my yellow. I'm going to just wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm going to pick up some yellow. This is going to give me a good vibrancy to it. I'm not going to put a ton of this yellow like this. I'm going to, in a second, pick up some white as well, because I know that this yellow can make it look a little unnatural when it comes to straw, even though there is yellow in straw. But I'm going to right now pick up some white with that yellow so I can get this to give me a little bit more of a natural kind of tone to it. And then again, just kind of giving myself these brighter bits of highlights on this top side. So not putting a whole lot of pressure because I don't want to over blend it. So I'm definitely just using a real light touch right now. And my paint is wet underneath. All these layers have not dried yet. So because they haven't dried yet, this is allowing me to get these colors to kind of intermingle a little bit but I've got to just be cautious that I don't over blend. So that's why I'm taking a little bit more time as I'm adding this lighter white color to it. I'm putting little bits of different directions too into the appearance of it, so that way it looks like it's got these strands of straw just coming out in different directions, and I can put these little tiny ones popping out every now and again. And it's, if you feel that you go too far on this, because it's really easy to just put too much and it all ends up looking like one solid color, just give it a break, let it dry for a little bit, and then you can come back and add or subtract anything that you want to on it. So I'm feeling like that's pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add, yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to add my details on my stick, on my broom stick. So how I'm going to do this, I just washed and dried my brush. I'm going to put a little shadow on the ground of the stick, and then I'll put a little highlight and shadow on the stick itself. So I'm picking up just a little bit of brown plus black on my brush. I'm thinking that my light source is kind of up, maybe a little bit to the left. I want this shadow to look to show that the broom kind of pops up a little bit. So I'm putting a little bit of brown and black on the floor below it, and I'm going to disconnect my shadow from my actual broom itself, where I feel that the broom would pop up. So wherever I have those areas popping up, that's where I'm going to disconnect it from its shadow. So something like this. And if your shadow can be darker if you wanted to, or lighter, I might add a little bit more black to mine in a minute, but a shadow is intended to be just the ground or that surface, only a little bit darker. So that works for me. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black to put a shadow on my broomstick at the bottom side of it. So I just picked up some black to put a shadow on the bottom side of the actual wood stick itself. So that's helping me to sell the story of where the light source is coming. So I just picked up black to accomplish that. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of, I'm going to wash and dry my brush and pick up some white paint to put a highlight on top of that wooden part of the stick. So white, maybe a little bit of brown too. So I have white with a teeny bit of brown on my brush, and I'm going to just give myself some highlights on the top side of this stick and some uneven highlights. I want it to look like it's kind of got a lot of texture to it, so just kind of playing with the unpredictable form of it. So something like that, maybe a little bit more white in a couple of these areas, and then I'm going to put a shadow underneath my broomstick or my straw part of it. So a little bit of black and brown, and I'm going to put this right up to the stick, right up to the pieces of straw themselves, and then just bring it out a little bit into the floor like this, and then do the same thing over in through here, maybe a couple of little pieces sticking out like that. Oh, my canvas a little bit too much on me. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black to make sure that I've got some real dark shadows in between some of these, and then maybe a little bit of black underneath here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'll do my piece of straw or my piece of rope that's holding all of these together in a second here. Let me just make sure I've got enough darkness underneath there. That looks pretty good to me. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some rust yellow and white on my brush, and I'm going to give myself this piece of rope that's just going to connect or hold all of these together, wiping my brush off, picking up a bit of black to give myself a little shadow between here, and maybe bring this up a little bit darkness in between here. And then if you needed to, you could wipe your brush off, pick up a little bit of white just to make sure that you have a nice highlight on top of here. And that is all I'm going to do for my broom. You can certainly sit and fiddle with it all you want. We're going to use our small brush for the next step, so you can just get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our face and our paws. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, white. I'll be using my rust and my yellow. And if I use any other colors, I'll let you know. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to kind of work from the dark to the light. I will put my base coat on for my eyes, my nose, my mouth, shadows in between where the ears are going to meet the face, and we'll just kind of work our way from there. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put just a tiny bit of black paint on my brush. You don't need a lot when you're doing this type of step, because the less you have, the quicker it's going to dry, and the more you'll be able to just build and work on those elements in a carefree kind of manner. So I'm going to put my nose on. I'm going to have my nose in through here, and as I do this, I'm going to be giving it soft edges. So if this is about the area that I want my nose to be, I can take my brush and just kind of rub it out along the edges so it's soft as it's meeting the furry area around it. I'm going to put a little bit more on my brush. I'm going to give that little kind of cute spot between at the bottom of the nose as it works its way down towards the mouth. I'm going to have him kind of smiley-ish, curious, I guess is the right word. If you wanted him to look sad, you can do more of a frown. I'm going to pull the corners up just a little bit so he's more kind of happy or curious, or I don't know, just having a cute little expression on his face. And if the black is too black for you, you can always pick up, I just picked up a little bit of brown with my black, just so I can get this to get a little bit softer around the edges as it's meeting that furry area in through here, or the sides of the cheeks. And I'm just kind of softening it as it's going down towards the bottom of the mouth in through there. I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little bit of the black to put my eyes in place. I'm going to have my eyes, I would say, somewhere in this vicinity. And again, I'm just going to give a real soft edge to them, so that way, I can build upon it and I can just give it that cute little expression along the sides and have it morph into the fur. So you don't really need to do much. I'm putting some black and brown on my brush right now in order to get the little shadow between the ears and the face. So something along this line is going to give me a little bit of that shadow. I'll get it to blend in a little bit more in a minute, but right now just really trying to give myself some barriers and get the paint to the areas on the face to work well and to make sense to me. So just getting that shadow to blend in a little bit with the face itself. Once I've got that on there, I'm going to put a shadow underneath this hat. So a little bit of brown and black is going to give me a touch of a shadow underneath the hat as it's working its way onto the cute little doggy face here, maybe a little bit underneath this ear in through here. I don't want to go all the way black, but I definitely want you to understand that the hat is casting a shadow upon the dog's fur, and it's really big and floppy and it's having fun. So in through the ears and the face, now what I'm going to do, that I've got those darker shadowy areas in there, is now I've got to just put a little bit of form into here and finalize my fur, and then I'll come back and we'll put the little information. I think I need my nose a little bigger. Hold on. Hold the phone for a minute. Let me just get this nose just a little bit bigger. It looks a little small for my puppy here. So I just kind of brought that out a little bit more. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the fluffy fur on, well, not fluffy, but the form on the nose. So I will lighten up the tip of the nose. I will put a second coat on all the rest of the fur on the ears and the face in order to make it look nice and have some dimension to it. So I'm going to be using my rust, my yellow, white, and probably a little bit of brown perhaps when I do this. So what I'm going to first do is I'm putting brown and rust on my brush at the same time. I'm going to bring a little bit of this color into, I think I need a little bit more brown, into the face in through here. This is going to help me to get this fur to really work well into the, we'll call it the white part of the fur on that nose a little bit. So just kind of bringing some soft edges in through here, making sure that it's really nice and soft as it's working its way into this white area. Maybe I'll bring this down a little bit further in through here. And the sides don't have to match one another, because all all dogs have different markings, so you can certainly make yours as similar to this one as you want or as different. I'm going to bring a little bit more darkness or brown over in this vicinity just so it looks like we've got those areas kind of dipping into behind the ear a little bit. I'm picking up a little bit of rust yellow and white in order to get maybe a little bit more lightness underneath these eyes and maybe a cute, curious eyebrow somewhere in through here, or eyebrow bone kind of area. So anytime you want something to pop out, you can add a little bit of that, just a little highlight here and there. I think maybe a little bit more darkness over here towards this left side of the eye, something like this. And I just kind of keep playing with the lightness and darkness on that face part. I'm going to do my ears in a minute, but just making sure that I've got this dark or this fur kind of working itself into the light area on the top of the nose. I'm going to go for my ears right now. So rust and yellow is what I have on my brush right now. Just kind of putting a second layer on here, and I'm going to add a bit of a highlight in a second. Wherever I want there to be an area of the ear that pops out, I think I want to pull this one down a little bit further. I'm going to make it lighter. So if I want the edges to be nice and light, or if I want there to look almost like there's a ripple in that ear, what I'm going to do, I'm just picking up a touch of white right now with a little bit of rust on it. So if I want this edge of the ear to pop out with a lighter version of whatever I'm doing on that ear, I can put an area with a highlight and it'll make it look like it's rippling and that it's got an area that's popping out closer to the viewer. So I just added a lighter version with that rust and white. Maybe I'll put a little bit down that edge of the ear, and then I just kind of work it in towards the this little darker section. So maybe a little bit of rust and brown can get this in through here, and then just get these to blend in a little bit. And that's one of those things that you can really have fun with tweaking and making it look a little bit more realistic by just kind of continuing to add that information on there. I can do the same thing with this little ear over here. So maybe a little rust and white will give me my little highlight part of this, the edge of the ear that's popping out. And maybe I just give it a little bit of a highlight as it's coming up in through here. Maybe this area bumps out a little bit more, and then rust and brown will be my richer colors that are going to be in this center area of the ear. And again, that helps to just give that little bit of dimensional element to have that piece of the fur or that object pop out a little bit. If I need this to be a little bit darker, if I want it to look like it's receding underneath that hat a little bit, I'll use that rust plus maybe a little bit of brown. And if I needed to, a little bit of black, I could do that too. But that will help guide the viewer into understanding that the ears are popping out and the top of the head is kind of receding underneath that hat a little bit. I'm sticking just a little bit more black and brown on my brush to give a little bit more shadow up, or dark fur up towards this this marking on the forehead a little bit. This will give me a little bit more depth in the face as well, bringing these little corners in through here, and then maybe I just keep adding. I know my son used to have a little beagle terrier mix, and they always had almost like these wrinkly parts underneath their eyes, so just getting a little bit of that in through there. I'm going to add, I washed and dried my brush. I'm putting some white paint on my brush right now to give myself a little bit of this highlighted part on the bump of the nose, or where that muzzle kind of pops out a little bit. And I'm going to utilize my light gray that I did as a base coat to get it to fade out or into the rest of that area. So I'm getting that tip to be the brightest because that's going to make it look like it is popping out. I'm doing just a dotting type of technique to get this color on here, and then I'll get it to just blend out or down into these little areas on the side of the nose. And of course you can fiddle with that as much as you want. The brighter it is, the more it's going to look like it's popping out. I need to put some eyes on here. I'll get to the feet in a minute. So my eyes, I'm just going to use a little bit of rust brown and yellow to give myself a little colored part of the eye. Hardly anything is what I'm doing here because I'm going to have a really cute, he's going to be looking to the side. So just a little bit of that. I wiped my brush off. I'm picking up a touch of white paint to give myself the corner of the eye. So I'm going to just put a little bit up there and then just pull it down in this curved mark down the right hand side. So a little up towards the top, and then I pull it down in like a little crescent look like that down towards the left hand side. You could even put a tiny bit on this left hand side, but not much, just a little tiny bit will give you the direction of the eye. You could also put a tiny little sparkle towards the top, so maybe a little bit of white plus one of your maybe brown or something to give you a little tiny sparkle up in through here, and that you can certainly keep fiddling with that. I think I want a little bit more lightness up on these eyebrows. Yeah, there we go. Little eyebrow bones, make them nice and curious looking. And of course you can fiddle with that all you want. Maybe a little more black in through here just to, I think that was a bit too much over on that side. There we go. That looks cute. And you know, one of the things is, you know, just if you need to step away from it for a little while or look at it from a distance, that sometimes can really help you to build the information around the eyes and stuff. So down on the toes, I'm just going to put a couple of little shadows between my paws or my toes in through here. Maybe you could even put little nails if you wanted to, but I just have a little bit of black and brown on my brush to give myself a little bit of shadow underneath the foot and in between those toes. And then once I've got that in there, I just wipe my brush off, picking up a little bit of white, gonna give myself a little bit of fluffy fur on top of it and bringing it down in this carefree manner with the lightness to it. I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown paint to give myself a tiny bit of a shadow as it is emerging from underneath the cape of sorts. And then of course you just keep fiddling with it as much as you want to. We are going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this small brush away, fiddle with it as much as you want. Oh, sorry. I need to finish my nose first. I was all excited about the toes and I forgot about the nose. So let's go back to the nose. I'm just picking up some of my light gray and I'm giving myself a little bit of almost a little highlight on the tip of that nose. You can certainly make yours as bright or as dark as you want, but that's really about all I'm going to do. Maybe a couple of little darker black nostrils, but not much. We just needed that little highlight on the nose, and then we'll go on to the next step. So with the medium brush, so you can just get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're putting the highlights on our costume and a little shadow underneath the edge of the costume. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are brown, white, black, and my dog tan gray that we came up with. So that would be the lighter browner version as opposed to my wall gray, because we're going to be doing highlights all over the costume, and I don't want the gray that we're using as the highlight to get lost or compete with the gray that's on the background. So the gray that we've mixed for the nose and the paws had brown in it, whereas the background just had black and white. So they'll be a little bit different. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to put a shadow underneath the cloak itself on the ground. So I'm going to be doing it similarly to how I did the one underneath the broom. So a little bit of brown and a touch of black is where I'm headed with this. And I am just taking it, and I want there to appear to be a little bit of a shadow under here. So I don't want it to go all the way black. So that way it again looks different than the actual cloak itself. Underneath the paws, I guess you could go a little bit blacker underneath them if you wanted that to look like it's sticking out a little bit more. You could certainly make that a little bit darker, but again, the shadow is just intended to look like the ground that it sits on or the object that it sits on, only darker. So if you needed to blend out a little bit, I just added a touch of water to my brush, so this is going to help me to get it to blend out into that surface a little bit better, the surface of the floor, and just reloading my brush with a little bit of black and brown to get underneath here a bit. And again, this is not a science, you know, just go with wherever you feel the underneath of that cloak would cast a shadow. I've got my light source up high, so it's not gonna take it too far, but I still want to, for me, I like to have that dimensional element, so I'm pulling that out a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding the highlights on my clothing. So I'm going to be using, on my brush, I'll be using black plus a little bit of this tan gray that we had to create kind of a roadmap for myself. So I'll start down here on the cloak part. So I want there to look like there's a little bit of a collar. So I'm going to take these two colors and give myself a little bit of a collar type of area in through here, and then just bring this down. I'm going to put a tiny bit more of the light color on here so I can see it a little bit better and have this kind of popping out just a little bit in through here. So I like to play with the variety of intensities on the highlights. So there's going to be some areas where you see I have it very bright, some areas where it's a little bit less bright, and it's all going to just kind of tell a story. If you ever do something that you feel like you've got it's too light, just pick up a little bit more black, and that'll help you to tone it down a bit. I want some highlights on the cloth on top of the feet like this, so it tells the story that they're popping out a little bit. So again, I'm just using black plus my highlight color. So this is going to work in here, and I will amp up some of these edges a little bit once I've got my roadmap in place. I'm going to have, I want this to look like it's kind of flowing. So I want you to tell that there's like legs in here. So I'm going to put a little bit of a light area in through here to imply that there is a leg or something underneath there that is giving a little bit of shape to that area, but I left it dark down here so that way it looks like it's kind of crinkled in a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing over on the sides here. So I want there to look like it's maybe popping out over here on this side, and maybe just kind of coming in and maybe having some movement over in through here. And as I do this, I'm not terribly concerned about it being perfect. This is cloth. I'm just really trying to give the viewer some information of the form of this little person or this little fun character that's underneath. So I'm using a subtle approach to getting these light areas on here initially, so that way I don't kind of overdo it, but I've still got some kind of structure as to where I want them to go. So right now I'm just saying, okay, I want this area to pop out, so I'm going to put a little bit of lightness in through there. I want this area to pop out, so I'm going to put a little bit of lightness in through there, and then I'll get this to kind of just come down in this direction. Maybe it has a little bit of movement down in through here, and I'll add some additional highlights in a minute, but right now just planning it out. I definitely want a big highlight on the brim of my hat, so I've got my same color combination that I'm working with, bringing this all the way over in through here. I'll probably want it to be lighter in through here, feeling like it's got a little bump to it. So again, wherever you want there to be a little bit of a bump, you can make it a little bit lighter and then just get this to blend in with here. This is going to blend in with here, and then maybe I'll have it definitely light over on this edge in through here. So I just picked up that color combination again, and I'm getting it to blend in with the darkness next to it in a subtle way. It doesn't have to blend in 100%, but if you can get it to blend in with the darkness next to it, that's going to give you a more soft kind of highlighted movement in your cloth. So just amping this up just a little bit. So, oops, don't want to go too much into my doggy there. So I can have this a little bit lighter. And again, once I've got all of my highlights kind of planned out, I'll be able to come back and say, okay, I think I want this to be even brighter. So I will definitely add a little bit into, in various areas. Adding a little bit to some of these edges as if maybe they're catching a little bit of light from the other side. I think I'm going to have a little bit in through here, maybe a little bit in through there. And then I'm going to go up to my head, my top of my hat. So again, just using that same color combination, that warm light gray plus a little bit of black, definitely going to have a highlight on this left side of my hat and through here, maybe a little bit up in through this area as if it's just kind of wrinkly or something, maybe in through here. Get that to blend in with the rest of the hat. So in order to get something like this that is in all actuality supposed to be a black hat, if you want there to look like there is movement to it, just adding these subtle little lighter areas is going to get it to pop out a little bit. It's going to get it to have more form to it. So it's not just a flat object on there, which wouldn't look bad for this one, just for the record, because he's so damn cute. It doesn't matter if he's wearing a flat hat or not. But if you want yours to have a little bit more movement. So now I've got them kind of all placed where I want them. I might have a little bit of highlight underneath this hat a little bit. Not much, but maybe just a little bit to show that there's a little bit of movement to that piece of cloth, or that maybe a little bit is catching some of the light from over here or something. So maybe just a tiny bit lighter than black in through there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up the light color. I didn't wash my brush, but I didn't add any more black to it. And this is going to give me these extra bright highlights along the edges, or wherever I want them to go. You may find that you want to go all the way white on these, and I might do that in a couple of areas, but right now I'm going to put a couple of buttons down in through here. Right now, just kind of telling myself where those brightest highlights are going to go. And then once I've got it done, if I do feel like I want to amp anything up, I certainly will have the opportunity to do so. I'm going to get this edge of this cloak really bright as if it's catching some kind of light from the left hand side. Going to just bring a little bit of this brightness down this side in through here, maybe a bit on this piece right in through here. So again, just using that light brownish gray that we had to blend in to those highlight areas and to amp them up a little bit wherever I feel that I want them to be the brightest. So over here, I think I'm going to get a little bit extra brightness over on this side, definitely over here on the left side of the hat. And again, you just do what's coming naturally to you. You don't have to follow the same exact pattern as I have. This is just where I feel that these little wrinkles would be. Maybe you feel that yours would be elsewhere. Maybe by the time you got done doing the shape of your hat came out way different looking than mine did. So just, go with yours. You don't need to go with mine. And I definitely am going to put maybe even a little bit more up. I might even pull out the white in a minute, but right now just kind of getting these areas to make sure that they pop out in front of that background. This is looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good. All right, I'm picking up just a tiny bit of white paint to make sure that I've got my brightest areas as bright as I want them. I think I want a couple of bright edges over here, just so the viewer doesn't lose the information as to where those bright areas are and where the light is coming from. And I'm thinking that's pretty think that's my chalk right there. I'm thinking that this is pretty good. I might fiddle with it a tiny bit more, but it's looking pretty good to me. So once you've got yours all fiddled and all your highlights as much as you want them, we have one tiny little step left to go, and it's going to be with your small brush, maybe just a little bit more in through here. It'll be with your small brush. So once you've got this done, of course, I'm going to just kind of keep fiddling with mine until I feel like, yeah, this is good. I wanted a little bit more on these paws. So once you've got that done, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I think I'm going bottom left on this one. Small brush, black paint. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you would like for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a fun, costumed little adorable dog. And I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.